Hey there, it's Talking Watercolor. I think this is vlog 34, and it's just the first week after Thanksgiving. Managed to survive the holiday and back, back on the post holiday diet, at least until Christmas. Hi there, new viewers, everybody who's watching. We're here to just talk about some of the things that are going on the channel, any of the comments I've been getting, any thoughts that I may have had due to any of the tutorials that I've posted, and some of the issues I'm having as I'm learning how to be a YouTube content creator. So welcome to the channel, and I hope you do get some value out of this. A lot of fun things been going on. I did manage to get a lot of things posted for last week that I didn't have to worry about it. And so I was kind of in a marathon of creating some short clips of various things. I think I did one on a single color portrait. Yeah, and it's typically what I do in class when we're working with our watercolor component in our figure drawing class is I'll just keep it real simple and work with one primary color, and I typically use purple because it has good density. Ultramarine's a good color as well because it has also good density, but if I do need a little more contrast, I will then either mix in some Payne's gray or ultramarine some burnt umber, or even some sepia color into the whatever, the blue or the purple, and it gives it that nice rich dark almost black color that you can then use to paint some of your structure and your contrast into your piece. It's a nice way of kind of easing into watercolor while doing figures. Figures are complex and compound enough without kind of having to throw in the whole range of colors that watercolor will bring to it. I do know that over the years as teaching figure drawing, and we do introduce color, regardless of whether it's watercolor or color pencils or color pastels, any kind of color automatically just becomes a Wild West show. It's a train wreck a lot of times because of the students getting accustomed to working with and understanding their color wheel and their use of colors and their contrasting colors, their color triads and things like that. So it does kind of eliminate some of the color decisions by just simply keeping it a monochrome color, something other than just black, so it has more than, it's a little more of an interest to it than just flat grays. So that's what been working with there. I posted that, and then I also posted the last week's Talking Watercolor, and then a tutorial on cars just dropped today. I'm filming this on Monday, the week right after Thanksgiving. So my cars, little quick tutorial on how to paint cars, and with when it's painting cars and scenes and like that, there's nothing to worry about. Heavy detail. If they're off in the distance, you just got to get the shapes right and get the right colors and the values into the painting of the shapes. So work on that, practice that. It's a lot of fun. Cars are a lot of fun once you figure out, and just keep in mind they're essentially a cube, right? And with some slabs of it kind of, chopped off to get the hood and the roof of the car, and of course then different eras of cars have different shapes as well. So you'll be a connoisseur of automotive shapes when you start adding and putting cars into your watercolors. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I think I have, I had a lot of good views on the hand drawing. And again, it's just a real quick sketch, the overall structure of the hand, and applying those basic, shape identifying skills to drawing the hand and breaking it down into the big shapes, and then moving into refining the hands as you go along in the sketch. And that's something you just need to practice. And I did get a couple comments. I've seen several comments over the course of the last year where, and I know this happens all the time, it happens up at the school too, where I will make it look simpler, easier than it really is. And there's just no good substitute for practice and then spending and being determined and spending a lot of time and extended over a course of years, months and years, to develop that ability to draw a certain shape. And hands are definitely something that everybody's interested in drawing, especially if you're taking some figure drawing classes, that instead of just putting hands in pockets or avoiding them or moving them to where they're behind the body or something like that, you can feel confident to tackle adding the hands into the drawing. Biggest problem with adding hands is getting the proportions just right. So, but that's always the problem with any time you're drawing the figure, whatever it is. There's the head too big in relationship to the body. So trying to gauge and judge those proportions, and it just takes a lot of practice. So pick up that pencil and get the drawing and work with that as fast as long as you can, as often as you can. So had a lot of other good comments. In addition to me making it look easy, and I do realize, and I remember when I was a student, some 40 years ago in class and working and watching other people who were experienced, who'd had years of experience drawing stuff, and thinking how easy they made it look, and becoming kind of frustrated with the fact that they could do it so effortlessly, that and all the students were struggling, definitely driving the big struggle bus as they were trying to learn how to do it. So let's see here. I've got a couple of comments. Oh yeah, I had several comments from people who had actually, they had watched the Loomis tutorial, the one that went bananas, and I'm still getting lots of comments and subscriptions from that video. I think it's closing in on 500,000 views, so that's definitely my biggest video to date. But I'm getting a lot of people, making comments about getting a Loomis book, as a kid, as they were learning how to draw some maybe 50 or 60 years ago, and really appreciate it. I think it was the Having Fun with a Pencil. I think that was Loomis's first book. I don't have that one. I've tried to download that from the archives.org. Last time I was out there, they had gotten hacked and I wasn't able to get it. So as soon as they're back up and running, I'll try to find that one and pop it out there as a resource as well. And I'll let you know when that happens. So definitely that, I had a similar book. It wasn't a figure drawing or drawing people book, but I had a book. Well, I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Kansas on a farm. So, of course, the book I got was The Art of Drawing Horses. And it was this big, it was probably a 11 by 14 inch book, paper-bound book. Opened it up and had everything about drawing horses and then other animals, dogs and cows and things like that. So my family got me that, and I spent a lot of time working with horses and drawing that damn horse that they detailed out in that. And looking back on it, that I think is kind of my introduction to breaking a figure or an object down into its primary shapes, because that book definitely went through that process of here's the basic shapes, and then you use those basic shapes as a foundation to then draw the more complex and undulating shapes around that overall basic structure. And I think that's one of the reasons I like the working with the Loomis method so much, in that he did the exact same thing that I think I was accustomed to when learning how to draw using that book. So yeah, I got a lot of comments about Loomis book, and then that got me thinking about the book that I had. I think it was only one book that I had that really kind of broke things down in that over the years. So anyway, that was a fun tour through memory lane. Let's see. Oh, I got a couple comments definitely about, people either thinking Loomis was either too mechanical or too overrated, or they don't need it. And you got to keep in mind, or that maybe I didn't follow Loomis rigidly enough. That was a comment from a couple of people as well. But you got to remember, and I've said this in a couple of previous videos, that the guidelines, the process, the method is pretty much just that. It's just a set of guidelines. They're not to be rigidly enforced. They're just to kind of give you a suggested area where, with some careful measuring, you can then get the eyes and the ears and the nose and everything in position. And if you're really wanting to get good at that and creating portraits, then that's when you really become hypercritical and conscious of placement and measurements to get the eyes and the nose, the shapes and the sizes, because there is variation. Everybody has variation: wider mouths, narrower mouths, fuller lips, wider noses, squintier eyes or hooded eyes, things like that. So there's a lot of variation. So the guidelines and the process in Loomis, it really is just a set of benchmarks and places where you can put your facial features and hopefully then get your skills up to the point that you really don't sketch it rigidly anymore. You're really, it's internalized. Essentially where these breakpoints are, and it's all done invisibly in your mind as you're drawing. So that's ultimately the goal you're going to get to. So if you practice with it enough, and it may seem very mechanical and constraining as you're just getting started, but over time, as you become more and more familiar with the process, you'll have a lot more freedom with your expression and being, more about the artwork. And then you can start working with your tones and lost edges and things like that in your drawings. So that was several of those comments. I had a lot of good comments this last couple of weeks. So, but it is a foundation skill that you just have to work through that process, internalize it, and then you're off and running, and then you can start worrying about being more and more creative. That was one of the comments, was I want to, set my art free and not be so rigidly adhering to the process, the Loomis method. So, I've had several graphic designers, former graphic designers or current graphic designers wanting to know or mentioning the fact that I have mentioned in my videos the Pro White. That seems to get a pretty good response from the former designers out there, and the Non-repro blue pencils. Even had a comment or a question about, does the blue lines disappear? It's a mechanical process, in that in the old days, when everything was shot by high contrast film for negatives to be reproduced on printing presses, the film wasn't fast enough to see the blue, and it would only see the black lines in a pen and ink drawing or something like that. So the blue lines would disappear under those conditions when they were being photographed. But now with the modern technology and stuff, the cameras, they see it, right? Unless you convert it and are shooting in straight up black and white or even grayscale, the blue line will even turn to a light gray in that regard. So yeah, it's definitely an old non-digital process that the blue line pencils were used for. They're great for animators, though. Animators, I think, still use them if they're drawing by traditional methods and things like that. But they just have a nice tooth. They have a nice mixture of clay into the pigment of the whatever it is, into the graphite and the color. So that was a fun comment. And I'm just about out of time already. And what else? Can a person reach professional levels without a formal education? I think that's going to require its own maybe talking watercolor episode. So I'll keep that one for the next time. And I think other than that one, I think that's everything that everybody has commented on and asked me about in the last week. So hey, I do hope you got something out of this little conversation. And if you did, please give me a like and a subscribe. Head over to my video description. I do have links there as well over to get the Loomis resources on my website. If you're interested, there's a watercolor resource there as well. They're free. I'm just simply, I direct you to a page where I'm asking for your email, but it's not required. The link to get in and go to the download is right underneath that email request. So if you don't want to give me that, that's fine. I'm trying to build an email list. So someday if I do put together some courses, which is coming up in year 2, as I wrap up year 1 on YouTube, I'm going to try to do a little more on that end of the spectrum in year 2. So, hey, give me a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you next week talking watercolor.